Hi, this is Richard Denton. Today I'm continuing the second in a series of 8 talks on science, Christian faith, and the days of creation, considering approaches to reconciliation. And today I'm continuing to address what's called the conflict model, the idea that Christian faith and modern science are in conflict. So some people in the secular realm believe that religion is like a medieval force coming out to battle the forces of enlightenment, represented by these scientists and philosophers here. And you can see them coming out of this ancient castle with axes and pikes. This is from a book in the late 1800s that I got from Ted Davis. The Christian view that some people have of conflict is that there are two forces. We have humanism on the one side, represented by these pirates in the castle, and then we have Christians in this Christianity castle over here. I actually like this cartoon. It's pretty funny. So the pirates are all working together to destroy the foundations of Christianity. The Christians are doing different things. So one's firing at some of the effects of humanism. One's firing up in the air. This one's actually firing at the foundations of his own castle, and this one's pointing toward another person in his own castle. The key thing here is that the presentation is that here's this foundation of sand for humanism, millions of years equals man is authority, which if these people attacked it, the idea being presented is that they could win, but they're not doing what they should do. The pirates are the ones who are attacking the foundations of Christianity, which is 6 days equals God is authority. So both of these ideas present what Dennis Lamoureux has called the origins dichotomy, either-or thinking. We either have 6-day literal creation with creation of life from nothing, leading to faith in God and then morality, or we have an ancient earth and evolution, which lead to atheism and results in a host of problems, immorality, and all kinds of social problems. So I want to start out by talking about today by what is science. So science is the study of the natural world. And because of that, it's not going to yield explanations in terms of miracles. Science, most people think that science is, you start out with a hypothesis and then you test it. But that can be an oversimplification. More realistically, there are observations that lead people to posit a theory. Based on the theory, people do take more observations, and these either confirm or discourage the theory. In science, results are always tentative. There's never 100% certainty. But the accumulation of much evidence can make scientific explanations more probable. Science can be self-correcting. If you're on a wrong track, then other observations can disprove that track and get people back on track. One thing to note is that because something is called a theory, that doesn't mean it's just an idea. There are theories like the theory of gravity, which just about everybody accepts. Now, were Christianity and science always in conflict? And the answer is no. One evidence of this is that medieval universities were started by the church. In the United States, early colleges were also started by churches. These include schools like Harvard, Yale, and Dartmouth. This is the founder of Dartmouth, Eleazar Wheelock, who was a minister. Science flourished under Christianity. And some people think that that's because the Bible describes an orderly universe. It's possible that the idea of spiritual law in the Bible may have motivated the idea of natural law in nature. So the idea that Christianity or religion in general is generally in conflict with science is relatively recent. According to Ted Davis, this idea was popularized in a book by Andrew White, A History of the Warfare of Science with Theology in Christendom. White was the first president of Cornell University, which was the first secular university. And he was trying to get funding from the government to help him found Cornell. And unfortunately, there was opposition from some leaders of Christian schools. So there may be some motivations that don't have anything to do with the issues here of science and Christianity coming from both sides. I'm going to define some terms. By creationism, I mean the belief that God is responsible for the creation of the world, however it happened. Young Earth creationism is the belief that God created the earth and all that is in it in 6 literal days, about 7,000 years ago. Progressive creationism is the belief that God created plant and animal species at different times in long ages past. Progressive creationism accepts the idea of an ancient earth, but probably not evolution. Evolution means the gradual change of species and doesn't necessarily imply any specific mechanism. Evolutionary creationism is the belief that God used evolution to create plant and animal species. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about logic because it's useful in considering the effect if we do accept an ancient earth and evolution. So consider a proposition A that implies a proposition B. So the question is, if A is not true, does that imply that B is not true? So let's consider a specific example. If 2 people are in a room, there are people in the room. Okay, that is true. If there are 2 people in a room, there are people in the room. So then here's the question. If that's true, is this true? If there are not 2 people in a room, there are not people in the room. Now, that is not true because there could be 1 person or there could be 3 people, and then there would still be people in the room. So A implies B does not mean that not A implies not B. So let's apply that to this argument. If the Earth is only several thousands of years old and evolution did not occur, our existence seems to be a miracle that defies explanation and points to God. It's hard to disagree with that. It would be a real miracle. Okay, but applying this logic, if the world is billions of years old, or if evolution did occur, that does not prove that there is no God. Now, let's consider a case where the church made a mistake and it fought against the modern science of its time, and now just about everybody understands that that was the case. So Galileo presented evidence supporting the ideas of Copernicus that the Earth revolves around the sun, not the sun around the earth. And a lot of the arguments that were given fighting against Galileo were verses in the Bible, where the Bible talks about the sun rising and the sun setting, or where in Joshua it talks about God making the sun stand still. Another passage is that the earth is immovable. So based on these passages, people thought that Galileo's ideas were challenging the scriptures. Now, there were lots of other things going on at the same time. So this trial that they had for Galileo was not just about defending the scriptures. Probably more importantly, it was defending the Pope. Nevertheless, a lot of people thought that it was important to defend the integrity of the scriptures by refuting Galileo and Copernicus. And this was not just an issue with the Catholic Church, but Luther and Calvin also took positions against Copernican cosmology, against the idea that the earth revolves around the sun. So this is a case where the church made a mistake, but we now realize that what science was saying about the earth's motion was correct. In these issues, I think it's good for Christians to have a view with some flexibility. Now, our pastor in New Hampshire has presented this slide a number of times. When he first became a Christian, he thought that there was one basket and all Christian beliefs were in that one basket and they were all equal. So the idea of Jesus being Lord and creation, all in the same basket. But he gradually came to a different view that there are circles of truth. At the center, the most important thing, the central thing, is Jesus Christ as Lord in our lives. And around that, there are things like dogma, which would include the basic creeds of the church. Then there are doctrines, like the doctrine of baptism. These issues that I'm talking about now, creation and evolution, fall in the range of opinion. And we should be more flexible and more humble about what we know about things that are opinion. So what course are we taking in this series of talks? My goal is not so much to get you to agree with me, but rather to encourage you to be open to the possibility that modern science can tell us about the means that God used for his creation. I especially want to combat anti-science attitudes that are prevalent in a significant segment of the American church. This is where people take a stand and say, you have to believe a certain way. And finally, I think that Christians should have an attitude of humility. If anybody ought to have an attitude of humility in areas where there is some uncertainty, it ought to be Christians. Thank you very much.